Hi guys, it's Kamil here. 2016, right? This video is sponsored by... It's coffee this time. My mother told me I should start drinking wine after last video. No, she doesn't watch it. So this will be a bit of chatty video since it's been ages since I scripted any of my videos. I just simply have no time. I mean, obviously I have books that I want to talk about today. This is a top list of 2016, my favorite books in 3 categories. So I have graphic novels or graphic journals. Then I have nonfiction, and then I have my favorite fiction. I had a very hectic year this year. It was very uneven. So I've read in total around 80 books, and 31 of those I've read in last 3 months. Some of those were short, I have to add that, but I had quite a good Q1. Then Q2 and Q3 were very uneven for me. As for reading, in Q3 I barely read anything. Then Q4, the last quarter of the year, it was the best. I've read, as I already said, 31 books. Those are not books that are published in 2016. Some of those were, but those were the ones that I've read in 2016. Read! Okay, time for graphic books. Number 4, Queer, a graphic history. This is a great introduction to queer theory from its very beginnings, with the people that probably today would be surprised to be put in this group, the ones that never thought about queer theory as such, up to modern days, through great names like Michel Foucault, like Simone de Beauvoir, like Judith Butler, like Audre Lorde, tons of others, very clearly explains the birth and development of queer theory, its various subgroups. It really makes you super interested in the idea of gender as social construct, why we perform certain roles. Very thought-provoking and great stuff. I would definitely strongly recommend it. Then I have at number 3, this is a graphic journal, graphic reportage, Jerusalem, I Chronicles from the Holy City by Guy Delisle. Guy Delisle is a graphic journalist. He is a guy that has a wife that works for Doctors Without Borders, and he travels with her to various areas around the world. So there are books by him from North Korea, also from, I think, Cambodia, not sure if from Cambodia or Burma, I think Burma, sorry, not Cambodia, but Burma, Myanmar nowadays. And this one is from Jerusalem, mostly because they're set in Jerusalem, but it's the book covering his life 1 year that he spent in Israel. I studied in Israel. I really love the country, and this was very accurate with all those absurdities of the country that I love, but I can see all of the absurdities, all of the injustice that happens to Palestinians. Great introduction to the topic if you would like to learn more about the Arabic Jewish conflict, Palestinian-Israeli conflict, to put it correctly. I would definitely recommend it. This is a great thing. It's quite big, but it's really super interesting. And it's written, drawn in a way that it's hard to put down. I would definitely recommend it. Number 2, this is another graphic journal by Riad Sattouf. This is The Arab of the Future. This is Polish edition. Book covers the life of his family. The mother is French, the father is from Syria. In Libya under Muammar Gaddafi rules. Very interesting, very political, but also very funny, even when it talks about serious stuff. Definitely recommend it. And number 1, I was really surprised with this, and this is mind-blowing. It was so touching, although it didn't last for long because this is a short one. I hardly ever wish a book to last longer, because generally I already have like 5 in my mind that I'm going to read as soon as I finish the one that I'm reading in a given moment. But this one was so magical. I cannot wait to pick up anything else by Shaun Tan, The Arrival. I know everybody talks about this book, and probably you've seen it everywhere, but this is as good as everybody claims it is. Touching, brilliant story of emigration and the hardship of emigration, shown in such a magical form. Shaun Tan's imagination has no boundaries. And his, just give me a moment, his drawings are just mind-blowing. This is a book that is silent, there is nothing, no word in it, just pictures, and I was glued to it, seriously, like to hardly any book that I've read this year. Now, time for non-fiction. I have 4 books over here, and number 4 is At the Existentialist Café, Freedom, Beings and Apricot Cocktails by Sarah Bakewell. This is, I had lots of introductions today that I talked about. So this is another of introductions. This one is an introduction to existentialist philosophy. It covers the most basic concepts, so it's very easy to understand. And as you know, with some of existentialists, early existentialists, Heidegger especially, those are not easy to grasp. And Sarah Bakewell does an amazing job to explain in a clear manner the basic concepts of their philosophy. And it covers also the 20th century in Europe, the very violent century, but the one that gave birth to existentialist philosophy. It's also heavy in anecdotes, almost gossipy, but this is what makes it easier to understand, because she goes from explaining concepts of existentialism to talking about the gossipy part of existentialist philosophers' life. So you have here Albert Camus, Martin Heidegger, Edmund Husserl, Jean-Paul Sartre, obviously, Simone de Beauvoir. Sartre, Beauvoir, and Heidegger are basically the main protagonists of this book, and she brilliantly explained maybe not Heidegger that much because he wasn't connected with those, but all the others, Camus, Sartre, Beauvoir, Maurice Merleau-Ponty, Karl Jaspers. Those were somehow connected, they knew each other, they were friends, then they stopped being friends because of some events, and she brilliantly covers that. I know that some people claim that it's not very serious, this is not an academic book, but I think this is a book for people that are interested in existentialist philosophy, that would like to know more about it, and it does its job brilliantly in that aspect. I would highly recommend it. Then number 3, I will not talk about it a lot because it's not translated yet into English. This is The Excluded Ones by Artur Domosławski. That is a Polish journalist. It's a brilliant book that talks in an essay form about different aspects of being excluded from the society. There might be tons of reasons of that, religion, nationality, poverty, sexual orientation, sex, great stuff, but it's not yet translated, so I will stop right here. Then number 2, Yuval Noah Harari was number 1 last year as for my non-fiction reads, with Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. This is Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. This guy makes reading non-fiction easy. Generally, when I read non-fiction, it's not as smoothly going as when I read fiction. Obviously, you are not plot-driven. There are always some areas that are more difficult than the others. You need to be more focused to grasp it in its entirety. While with him, it's like an amazing adventure, and it's brilliant. Here in this book, Yuval Noah Harari describes various trends. So he talks about dataism, the idea of data, that data is power. He talks about the way how our societies might develop in the future. But it's not speculation, it's more of a historical analysis, although we are talking about the future because he is historian, and based on historical aspects, he is thinking how our society might shape in the future. He brilliantly talks about the ideas and how those are created by humans. Doesn't matter if we are talking about religion, doesn't matter if we are talking about human rights, those are just concepts with which we are shaping our society, putting boundaries to our behavior, setting rules to our organization as a society, setting norms. All of that are constructs. Those are not natural, they are not given. And I love his way of thinking when he basically thinks that all of that doesn't matter if we are talking about Islam, Christianity, or we are talking about human rights, liberalism, humanism. Those are all constructs that were set to organize our society. It's nothing permanent, it's nothing that is coming out from us being human and our natural identity. These are just constructs, and he's talking about other constructs that might shape our society in the future. Brilliant stuff. And number one, the book that basically made my year as for nonfiction. This is very critical as for our current state of affairs. Guy Debord, Society of the Spectacle. I talked about current state of the affairs when I'm talking about the book that was published in 70s or 60s, probably in 70s. Guy Debord, that is a lefty philosopher, here talks about the society of spectacle. He claims that our society went from being into having into appearing, and now we are in the society of the appearance, the society of the spectacle. Media, and now even more because of the social platforms, are creating this unrealistic imaginary world that, because it's so aspirational for everybody else, becomes actually our reality. It becomes more real than the life that we are having. We are just slaves to that image that we are aspiring to, and we do everything, including slaving ourselves away, working days and nights just to be closer to that image that we aspire to. He very interestingly also explains the idea of power and how this image, this is basically controlling us all. Even him being lefty, people are probably already thinking, yeah, he's probably one that is glorifying the Stalinist and communism in Russia. He is actually very critical. There is a great analysis of Communist Party in Russia, in Soviet Russia, and brilliant stuff, and I absolutely was hooked and blown away. Okay, so those were non-fiction books. Okay, so this video will be probably half an hour long. I love this coffee. You know, coffee is the best stuff ever. This is a, you know, I generally like a bit bitter coffee and also with a bit of fruit flavor. So I love African coffee from Kenya, Ethiopia, but this one is actually from Bolivia, and it's brilliant. Okay, now a fiction time. And I have 11 books, so I better wrap it up. So number 11, Stanisław Lem, Solaris. This is the classic of science fiction. Stanisław Lem is a Polish science fiction writer, but he is one of the most influential writers of science fiction, I would say. And this one is basically addressing the aspect of limits of human understanding, of human possibility to get to know the other, and that we will always try to understand the other through our own understanding of ourselves. And that will always set a limit to that. Brilliant stuff. I would strongly recommend it. Then number 10, The Happy Marriage by Tahar Ben Jelloun. Tahar Ben Jelloun is a Moroccan writer that lives in Paris and writes in French. And actually there is a funny story with this book. I bought it on Amazon, and when there was a book fair in Warsaw, I met Tahar Ben Jelloun and I got it signed. He's a French-speaking guy, an Arabic-speaking guy, obviously, but he doesn't speak English. There was a translator over there that I think wasn't great with English either, or maybe it was just my pronunciation. Not sure. Anyway, she was Polish, and the guy asked me where did I bought this book, because he was in Poland. This is an English translation, and it wasn't yet translated in Polish. And I said Amazon. And what she did, she translated, he bought it in Asia. And the guy was like, why the hell would he bought this book in Asia? Anyways, So this is a great story of a marriage, but not a typical one. The intellectual coming from wealthy Arabic family from Morocco meets a barber girl in Paris. Berbers are these native people to Northern Africa. They live in Morocco. They have officially all the rights, but basically they are the second category citizens over there. They get married, and on the surface level, it's a story about deteriorating marriage, but on the deeper level, this is a great allegory of Arabic-Berber relations. Fantastic stuff. I would definitely strongly recommend it. Then there is number 9, The Heart by Wallace de Carangal. Another translation from French this time. This is a brilliant story about lost grief. How many books are about that? But what Wallace de Carangal does, she has this very hyperbolic way of writing, but it's never tiring. She makes writing about walking on the corridor captivating. And this is a story of 16-year-old young French surfer that dies due to car accident, and the story of his parents, the medical staff, and people that his organs will be transplanted to. So we can say that this is a story about the people that are connected to each other because of the organs of this guy. I loved it. It's very moving, very truthful, beautifully written, greatly translated. This one is translated by Sam Taylor. I would strongly recommend it. At number 7, there is a book that I've read as a first this year, and this is the book of Daniel by E.L. Doctorow. This is E.L. Doctorow's story of America during Red Scare, told from the perspective of the son of the killed couple during Red Scare that was accused of passing over the atomic bomb information to Soviet Union. Yes, you are right. This is inspired by the story of Rosenberg's, and it's a brilliant one. It's a story about the family. It's a story about parents' choices and how they affect family life, but it's also the story of resistance. E.L. Doctorow goes through different groups of resistance in the history and talks about them and the nature of resistance, also while talking about this family drama. And it's also greatly and unusually written. It goes from third-person perspective to first-person perspective, very often in one sentence. So sometimes you have to gymnastic a bit to follow him, but it's so worth it. Then there is number 7, Dany Laferrière, The Enigma of the Return. This is a guy from Haiti. He lives in Canada, he writes in French, and this is the one that was translated by David Homo. As you can see, I loved quite a bit of it. This is a story. This is not a story. It's hard to tell if it's a novel, if it's a journal. It also blurs the lines between poetry and prose. And in a brilliant form, Dany Laferrière basically addressed the idea of belonging, what it means to belong to a certain place. He's an immigrant living in Canada, and the protagonist of this book receives a call about his father passing away. And he goes to Haiti, goes back to Haiti, to the place that he left a long time ago. It's a place stricken by the poverty, but at the same time, it's a place so close to his heart, where he is now a foreigner, why he doesn't feel at home in his new country, Canada, either. Definitely recommended. Very touching, very great book, and very strikingly and heart-wrenchingly talks about the aspect of poverty in third world countries. Number 6, a book that grew on me a lot during the year. I wasn't crazy about it. You are reading it, you are shaken by the drastic, very violent, animalistic behavior of the characters, but in the same time it does its purpose. It makes you numb, and I think that it's what Cormac McCarthy, because I'm talking about Blood Meridian, wanted to evoke in you, to make you a bit more like this gang that is traveling, hiring themselves on the border between USA and Mexico, and is killing innocent people in order to be paid for the scalps that they claim to be the Indian ones. This is Cormac McCarthy's way of addressing the myth of Western. He massacres the myth of Western. He shakes off all its fake nobility, and he shows the brutality with which the Western side of USA was conquered. Brilliant allegory to power, to God, to morality, to war, with the unforgettable characters. The judge, probably one of the best characters that I've read in Cormac McCarthy novels, and he has tons of great ones. Yeah, masterpiece. Then I have number 5, Han Kang, Human Acts. Yeah, you are probably thinking, how come you have Human Acts by Han Kang after the classic of modern literature that Blood Meridian is? It shook me more. It evoked more emotions in me. It was more my cup of tea. So this is Han Kang's second translated into English novel. Han Kang is a Korean writer, and this one addresses the aspect in South Korea history. Obviously, I'm not talking about North Korea. This is South Korea, the better one. So Han Kang addresses the history of Gonju Uprising. Gonju Uprising took place in 1980s in South Korea, when South Korea was under military dictatorship over there. This was the uprising of students in defense of workers, but at the end it was basically the students uprising, while workers didn't really participate. And I believe there was around 2,000 up to 3,000 people killed. I will double check that because I'm not sure. Mostly around 20 years old students. And Han Kang has this way of writing that even though she writes about drastic, violent, sometimes almost biologically animalistic aspects, she never crosses the border of good taste, and she somehow manages to do it in a poetic form while evoking tons of emotions in you, not being sentimental in the same way. I don't know if it does make sense. So this book covers period of Gonju Uprising, and then it talks about the ones that survived and how they are basically walking dead, people that were never able to live normally. And this also is a story of those bodies rotting away on the piles of bodies. I could talk about it forever. I will put a link to my video review. This is the brilliant stuff. Then number 4. Once again, Cormac McCarthy, The Child of God. This is Cormac McCarthy's second ever published novel, I believe. One of his examples of a Gothic Tennessee period. Blood Meridian is one of the examples of his later Western period. In this book, he's talking about the Lester Ballard, which is the child of God, and it's hard to imagine more depraved, more violent, more, I will use it again probably, animalistic and savage character. If you want to know why, I will put a link to my video, a review, but probably first pick up this book. I loved it. Then top 3. Oh my god, this will be a long one, right? Probably you are already tired. I am a bit. Top 3, guys. Okay, the third place of my top 11 books of 2016 is Another Country by James Baldwin. Brilliant, touching, moving story of young musician Rufus Scott, young Afro-American that is damaged by the hatred put upon him by the society that is racially divided, and that hatred coming from the society is internalized and becomes the power that destroys Rufus. The second part of this book is the story of his sister. It's very interesting that Baldwin talks about race through mixed race relationships mostly. It's a book that I think talks about racial implications like hardly any other that I've read. I loved it. Yeah, Then number 2. I have those 2 books, and I was really thinking for a long time which one should be number 1. I had to rank it somehow. So number 2, White Noise by Don DeLillo. This was published in 1985, I believe. DeLillo's commentary of what's wrong in our society, how we are silencing ourselves with noise that is surrounding ourselves, with the bullshit that we hear in media, with bullshitty consumptionism, with bullshit activities that are getting more and more silly. This is a brilliant, brilliant commentary that I also talked about in a review, so I think I will leave it here. Don DeLillo, just one last thing, has this way of writing that maybe is not the easiest one, but he makes my brain work like hardly any other writer that I read. He just makes you think every single second that you read his stuff. He opens your eyes to the things that you taken for granted or you never thought about. Definitely amazing stuff. Then number 1 of my favorite books. As for fiction, this year, very surprising one, Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner. And it's really hard to describe this one not using very generic and sounding banal description, because the power of this book lays in its writing and its low-key wisdom. On the plot level, it's a story about the friendship of 2 couples. It's a quiet, very intelligent story of our aspiration in life and how very often we have to come to compromises and compromise things that we believed in the past in order to survive. But don't think about it as anything dramatic, because hardly anything dramatic happens in this book. There is a brilliant quote that I will read to you that summarizes everything that happens in it without spoiling it, while giving you a picture of what this story is about and how beautiful it might be. How do you make a book that anyone will read out of life as quiet as this? There is one guy that is a writer in this novel. Where are the things that novelists seize upon and readers expect? Where is the high life, the conspicuous waste, the violence, the kinky sex, the death wish? Where are the suburban infidelities, the promiscuities, the convulsive divorces, the alcohol, the drugs, the lost weekends? Where are the hatred, the political ambitions, the lust for power? Where are speed, noise, ugliness, everything that makes us who we are and makes us recognize ourselves in fiction? The people we are talking about are the hangovers from a quieter time. They have been able to buy quiet and distance themselves from industrial ugliness. Leave a mark on the world. Instead, the world has left mark on us. We got older. If you like quiet, brilliantly written, smart books that carry with this quietness enormous power, this is the one. Okay guys, that's it. Tell me if you read any of those books. Tell me what were your favorite books that you've read in 2016. I already watched a ton of top 2016 videos, but if you have a channel that I might not know, please also leave a link or tell me about it down in the box below so I can watch your favorite books. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Bye. By the way, have a great New Year's Eve. Hopefully I will still upload this video today. So have a great New Year's Eve and all the best in New Year 2017. Gosh, the times fly. Yeah, that's another banality. Okay. Yeah, hope to see you soon. Bye bye.